Okay, so we're going to start here. Welcome to Pat and Quita's Gardens.
Hi.
We thought it would be fun to do a little tour of our native plant gardens on our 4 acres. A lot of friends and family don't always get a chance to come here during the summer and when the gardens are peaking, so we thought we'd bring them to you in a little video. So thank you, Eliza, for being videographer. So this is known as the Mistake Garden. We kind of finished this one off this year. There's a bunch of silphiums you'll see in here over by Quita, the compass plant, prairie dock here with the fat heart-shaped leaves, and then there's also rosinweed in here, and I'm not sure if the fourth one's in here. However, we had a bunch of flat flying here for a while, and those prairie plants tend to get 14 feet into the ground, and so that's what these silphiums did. They all broke their pots and went south, and so we just kind of left them where they're at and put a bed in of additional. That only took us 5 years to get to that, but it looks nice. Nice little pollinator garden. Okay, coming this way, this was our first piece of prairie we did, probably the year or two after we moved in. I think it was the first or second year. This was the first piece, Quita. I put it in, I know.
Okay.
And this was put in according to the Wasikowski's book, Gardening with Native Plants, and a matrix of cool season, warm season plants, and then grasses mixed in too. And basically that oak tree was the only thing that was here, right? You see a couple other shrubs have snuck in, some willows and some viburnums out that way. But basically I had this all mapped out and put them in plant by plant. So that was the first year prairie. This is probably over 10 years old now. Turning this way, back to the north of the property, this was the second major chunk we put in. And this has a little different species configuration. You see the wild rose put in here. This thing is just magnificent. And a couple, 6 weeks ago, it was just humming with bees and the smell of rose just blossoming out. But then you see a lot of the cup plant, and then by Quita, that wonderful cordgrass. Yes, very good, Vanna. And just going into seed production now. But these cordgrass have kind of come in nicely in a nice mix of the prairie plants. There's also panic grass in there and some big and little blue. But a nice different kind of prairie mix in there.
Tallgrass prairie.
Yeah. I guess moving on to the next piece of prairie as we go, notice these two bird shrubs. This is high bush cranberry, viburnum, and over here the chokeberry with that bright purple berry to it. Two good wildlife shrubs. But this was the next piece of prairie we did in here, and so it's really coming in this year with the wet year. We really had some good rain this year, above average water, and so it takes a while for these warm season big blue stem Indian grass to get going, but this year they seem to have really fit this space nicely. Earlier in the year there's a nice lupin field here, the wild lupin,
mixed
with a little Indian paintbrush.
And the phlox.
Yeah, prairie phlox also mixed in. So there's some cool spring stuff in here too. But and then there's bush clover in here, zizias, all sorts of fun stuff. Some of the liatrices, both dwarf, like here's dwarf right here, wild onion, asters starting to come on. All right, come on, Finn. So this is this year's wildflower crop. 160 species of different fun things. Pretty good germination too. This was the first year I actually stratified stuff in the fridge versus doing it outside, and it seems to have made a difference. A lot of transplanting still to go. Right, Quita?
Yep.
That'll be a single effort.
Oh.
What? Oh, look at seed collecting. So, for you novice plant folks out here, this is how some of the prairie plants do their thing. This is Desmodium canadense, or the tick tree foil, but it has these little Velcro-like seeds, that grab onto critter fur and other human sweaters. These are our grasses that we're going to still transplant out into the prairie this year, and some sedges over here, as well as some, looks like Cyto's gamma grass, about 10 trays of that. So lots of work to do. Still got some planting. Bucky, let's not walk on there. Come on, Buck. If anyone wants a dog, Bucky's up for sale. Just contact us. Cheap. Cheap. This is probably about, what, 3 years old, 4 years old? So the way we do it is 20-foot by 100-foot rolls of black plastic, so you can kind of see the triangular nature of these patches going towards the national forest there on our southern boundary. Nice mix of rigid thank you, goldenrod going right now. Here's that other silphium, the rosinweed, wild licorice sprinkled in. That stand's doing well. And then moving out here, this was last year's planting, so this big rectangle moving out to the south again, where it's just a little greener. That big rectangle is where we planted last year. Believe it or not, probably 100 trays of plants, plus 30 bags of seed.
It's all right here.
Yeah.
There are little things just coming up.
So our prairie plants like to grow the first 2 or 3 years down. They're perennials, so they're getting their feet established, and in a couple years it'll look more like the stand we just looked at next door. And Django's rubbing right where our new prairie planting begins. So basically this big rectangle is where we treated this year, so that's what you see, the brown spots. Here are where our herbicide treatment was, or a rug was used, or black plastic, and then these green spots were just treated last Friday, so they're still in the process of dying. But we just planted a line of fall sunflower, the Heliopsis, affectionately known as Heliopsis Highway, rolling to the right there, and this is where all those trays that we just walked past will be going in this fall.
Lots of work.
Looks like they'll be taking a couple weeks off to put plants. All right, let's walk this way. Watch your step.
So these are drifts of seed, one species thrown out in a long, slow line in the hopes that we'll have drifts, as they call them, of one species at a time. Like this patch right here of the rattlesnake master. The plants look more dramatic when they're bunched together, the same species. So.
Plus, from a teaching point of view, it's when we have groups out here, kids, garden groups, we have a clump of plants together like this rattlesnake master, it's easier for us to talk about them, for the group to crowd around and to learn. In fact, these plants were put in by Rhinelander area high school students as part of the high school scholar summer program. So I think of those guys whenever I see this patch. All right, so you can see this is looking upslope towards the house. The prairie patches, looking pretty good from over here. If I'm a pollinator, open for business, as Scott Walker would.
That's a whole bank of Jerusalem artichokes that the former owners planted closer to the house, and we just moved them around, ripped them out because they come out of the ground easily, tossed them on the compost pile, and now look how pretty our compost pile is. Talk about the clear cut.
Just want to show people how
Watch your toes. Yeah, that's all that garbage, the mirror and other stuff people have been dumping. This is National Forest here on the other side of the road that they just clear cut this summer, which wasn't a bad thing because the idea of having 60, 70-year-old jack pine standing next to your house is not comforting when you start to think about wildfire. But it's a change that takes a little getting used to.
Yep, not as quite as many trees out there as there used to be. You should have been here the day they were cutting those. The birds freaking out, flying all over the place.
Look how nice that American ash is, though. It's really come back now.
Yeah.
It's opened up. Happy birds.
All right, now we're going to head into the vegetable garden, which is 100 feet by 50 feet wide of pseudo-fenced spot. You'll see why I'm laughing here in a second. We had quite the deer damage last night. We can't figure out how they're jumping a 7-foot fence, but come on, we'll show you what we mean. So basically this backside and that backside of this vegetable garden is all native plants for pollinators and seed collection that we use on the prairie. And then starting here with the asparagus, this bed here, and kind of looking this way, these 3 beds along here are vegetables and fruits, and these 2 big ones here, you see the tomato posts, are where we grow our veggies every year. And lots of flowers, lots of herbs mixed in. And then beyond those 2 big, what are they, probably 40 by 8 feet veggie beds are more native plant beds. So come check it out. These are our strawberries, alpine strawberries. You see how nice, neat, and tidy they are? They don't spread nearly as vigorously as our woodland strawberry, and they're nice and tight. Really did great this year as a crop. Oh, there's the deer damage we're talking about.
That happened last night. They ripped that off.
And that was on a mammoth sunflower that's what, easy 7 feet, 10. That was even taller than that.
You guys are corn yet, though.
No, so far. That'll be on tonight's menu. So again, this is all veggies. Pea pod, anyone?
Oh, why are they so yellow?
Why is it yellow?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're yellow pea pods.
Oh, I thought they just were, like, sick.
Nope. All native plants again. And then Quita likes to refer to these. There's 9 of these rectangular beds stationed here. She likes to refer to them as the previous wives. Henry VIII's previous wives, that is.
Patrick VIII.
But what we do here is we grow these native plants for seed source. So basically we can collect this seed up every year and cheapen the cost of growing those plants for stock.
We try.
We still buy plenty of things though. But that's where all your Christmas presents go. So you see the beautiful Celine there, the Celine, I don't know if it's Regia or Virginica, but fire pink. It's like a firework exploding in the air. One of the plantains there, the white plantain, sweet Indian plantain. Wow, dynamite. One of the native shrubs in the lead, or the bean family. Look at our apples. Oh, these are getting close.
Yep.
So these were, all that was pretty much in here were these 3 apple trees. Quita, and under the tutelage of John Krause, has trimmed them for...
And Mike Pazinski.
And Pazinski, yep. They fooled around with these every winter, and they've really become nice producers. Some new raised beds there with another fruit, honeyberry, and the Linicera genus, and then some buttonbush.
And then the potatoes.
Yeah, and our potato crop back there in that far bed. If there's one thing we can grow here,
it's potatoes.
It's potatoes.
All of this used to be an old potato field for a while, and then it was a sheep farm.
Yeah, they've tried egg here in Phelps over the years, but it's a boom and bust kind of cycle, I'm afraid. Gets a little dry here sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, a couple more projects here to show you, and we're tailing off to the end here. So we'll pick it up here again. This little moving from east to west on the property along the south side of the house here is our bird habitat. So what we did here is a lot of smaller growing shrubs, fruit shrubs, willows. You see the ash tree over top, elderberry mixed in there, and then the ground layer, beautiful ginger, violets, cardinal flower flowering away.
This all grew in the last 13 years. There was nothing but this ash tree here when we moved in. So.
And we have, you know, during winter months, as many as 300 birds rolling in and out of here trying to stay warm and eat. Bird highway. You can see the sapsucker working its magic. Viburnums, though. Here's the pin cherry. Here's one of the June berries. Again, lots of bird food here. And then it's always good to have conifers mixed in. In fact, I bet if we come in here, oh yeah, you see a little nest down in here. So having conifers mixed in. These are dwarf again, so they kind of fit with the space and allow for birds to sneak nests in too.
Look at the rose hips.
Yeah. So which one of these are Midas?
This is Midas rugosa.
Okay.
And then there's one from Pops' place on the other
side. Yeah. I think this is the first year they've been flowering hard. Cool. So 2 plantings kind of left. We had an opportunity here a few years ago. Our neighbor was cutting trees, and we had a lot more pines and scraggly spruce and just kind of a monoculture, or 3 species, really. The red pine, the spruce, and balsam. So we thinned that out, and then again, working with those Rhinelander High School students another summer, we planted over 200 trees that you'll see in tomato cages like this. So you see the mountain ash coming up here, and again, 200 trees, shrubs, and vines out there, and then wildflowers galore on the bottom, food for pollinators and critters. And you Irish folks out there, as well as the Hungarian side of things, this is one of our cultural trees. This is the hawthorn. So in Ireland, the tree of the fairies. Don't want to be too far away from a hawthorn because it protects the fairies during the day. I catch Quita out here all the time at night looking for fairies. This is one of our Northwoods treasures, the thimbleberry. And this year we had a flower.
Yes, we had a couple.
I don't know if we had a berry, but we had a couple flowers, which was big news for us. But you can see it's really taken over as a nice thicket here. And if you've ever had Upper Peninsula thimbleberry jam, you'll remember it. Beautiful stuff. Here's one of our native grasses, the so-called bottle brush grass. But and you got some shots of that, so we don't have to show that. Here's the rock garden. So this was back in 2000, I think, 7 we put this in. I use "we" loosely. But you see a mix of shrubs, like the salix on the far side of the bed, this amorpha here, the Quita standing, thank you, Vanna, mugu pine in the middle, and just kind of a mix of native plants, again, helping protect the birds. Yep, some non-natives in there, just to keep Quita on her toes. Hi, Quita's Gardens, our beautiful river pine, or river birch, I mean. Just to show you what deer damage can look like again. So here's our giant Solomon seal. Woo, looks good, right? Well, that's what Mr. Deer said. Munch, munch, crunch, crunch. Didn't Leonard make these?
Yeah, this is one of Leonard's yard art. We should have done the thumb, too.
Yeah, I'd like those around. We got all sorts of Leonard sculptures and art around here. And then one of the last 2 things here, we have butterfly gardens over here along the driveway. intercepting a little runoff there. You see the wet spot in the driveway, and then just a nice mix of pollinator plants. And then coming over here towards Quita, where this butternut tree is starting to grow, and underneath this white popple, that was here, don't blame us. But every year we cut a few limbs off this, and the woodland stuff is coming up. So there's cherry trees, this butternut, like I say, a couple oaks back there. And then dogwoods. And then the next project will be moving to the north here again, thinning out some of these pine trees and getting more diversity in there. And then last but not least, this is our wetland bed. So you see the swamp rose in front of us, one of the spireas there, steeple bushes. I think there's some turtle head going right now. Yep. The sneezeweed there in the middle, about to go. So it's fun. There's a couple orchids in there, and that's our wetland. So that's our garden tour. Thank you, Vanna, for being a lovely model. And hopefully you can come see them in person someday. That's all from the Northwoods.
Thank you. Oh, come and visit.
Come and visit.
Anytime. Bye.
Bye-bye. Hasta luego.
All right.
Finn, wave.
Bye. Wave.
Going, gone.